Red Bull has just been hit by a bombshell that could change Max Verstappen's future forever. Helmut Marko says he would not bet on Verstappen repeating his previous comeback. Red Bull is recruiting new staff while departures continue to raise serious questions. Verstappen is trying to enjoy the season wherever he can, and he is now publicly rejecting the narrative surrounding the team. But here is the detail nobody can ignore. The source does not name the owner, reveal a direct announcement, or confirm any order to force Verstappen out. So why does this story feel so dangerous? Because Red Bull's biggest threat may not be an owner wanting Verstappen gone. It may be Verstappen deciding that Red Bull can no longer give him a reason to stay. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why this situation is so dangerous, you have to start with one simple fact. Max Verstappen is not just another Red Bull driver. He is the center of the entire project. The team's identity, confidence, and recent success are all tied closely to him. When Verstappen wins, Red Bull looks untouchable. When he struggles, every weakness inside the organization becomes easier to see. That is why this story matters. A normal driver dispute can damage a season. A conflict involving Verstappen could reshape Red Bull's entire future. But here is the first major twist. The supplied source does not confirm that any Red Bull owner has announced that Verstappen must leave. There is no named owner. There is no direct quotation. There is no confirmed order to remove him. So, the real story does not begin with a dramatic announcement. It begins with doubt. Helmut Marko has said that he would not bet on Verstappen repeating the kind of comeback he produced during the previous season. That statement is far more important than it first appears. Marko has watched Verstappen produce extraordinary performances under pressure. He has seen him rescue difficult weekends, limit damage, and find results that looked impossible before the race began. So when Marko refuses to bet on another recovery, the warning may not be about Verstappen's ability. It may be about the size of the problem around him, and that changes everything. Because Verstappen can solve many problems from inside the cockpit. He can brake later, he can manage the tires better, he can carry more speed through a corner, he can stay calm while the car moves underneath him. But he cannot rebuild an entire Formula One team while driving it. He cannot replace every experienced employee who leaves. He cannot personally control recruitment. He cannot design every upgrade. And he cannot guarantee that the next technical decision will work. At some point, even the greatest driver needs the team to meet him halfway. That may be Red Bull's first real crisis. For years, Verstappen's talent has made difficult situations look less serious than they really were. A poor weekend becomes a recovery. A weak car becomes competitive. A strategic problem becomes a smaller loss. And because the final result looks respectable, the deeper weakness can remain hidden. Imagine a house with water leaking through the roof. Someone places a bucket underneath it. The floor stays dry. The room still looks normal, but the roof has not been repaired. The bucket is only hiding the damage. Verstappen has often played that role for Red Bull. He catches the mistakes. He limits the damage. He keeps the team alive when the situation should look much worse. But if the pressure keeps increasing, even he cannot stop the water forever. That is why Marko's skepticism matters so much. It suggests that Red Bull may understand something the public is only beginning to notice. Another miracle cannot be the plan. Another comeback cannot be guaranteed. And another season cannot depend entirely on Verstappen producing more than the car should allow. Red Bull needs proof. Proof that the car can improve. Proof that the structure around Verstappen is still strong. Proof that the team is rebuilding rather than slowly losing control. And that is where the next warning appears. Red Bull is recruiting new staff while departures continue to attract attention. Verstappen has tried to calm the situation by saying that movement between teams is part of Formula One. Broadly, that is true. Engineers move. Specialists receive new offers. Departments change. Rival teams compete for the same talented people. But timing changes the meaning. When a dominant team recruits aggressively, it looks ambitious. When a team under pressure recruits while experienced people are leaving, it can look like emergency repair. And that is the uncomfortable question Red Bull cannot avoid. Is the team building something stronger? Or is it trying to replace something it has already lost? The source does not provide enough detail to answer that. But the uncertainty itself is damaging. Because Formula One teams are not built only from talented individuals. They are built from trust. The driver trusts the engineers. The engineers trust the leadership. The strategy team trusts the information, and everyone trusts that the project is moving forward. Once that trust begins to weaken, every small problem feels larger. One poor result becomes a warning. One failed upgrade becomes a pattern. One staff departure becomes the beginning of an exodus. And one careful comment from Verstappen becomes evidence that he may already be thinking about the exit. That may be unfair, but this is how pressure grows. Red Bull is now trapped inside that pressure. If Verstappen sounds frustrated, people say he wants to leave. If he sounds calm, people say he is hiding the truth. If he rejects the rumors, people say the rumors must be serious enough to require a denial. There is no perfect response. And that is what makes this situation so dangerous. Red Bull is no longer only fighting for performance on the track. It is fighting the belief that its strongest years may already be behind it. That belief affects everyone. The engineers feel it. The sponsors notice it. Rival teams exploit it. Potential recruits question it. And Verstappen must decide whether the project around him still deserves complete trust. That is the real pressure point. Not whether Red Bull still wants him. The deeper question is whether Red Bull can still give him what matters most: a believable path back to the front. Because loyalty can survive frustration. It can survive difficult races. It can even survive a disappointing season. But it cannot survive uncertainty forever. And one recent shift in Verstappen's own language suggests that uncertainty may already be changing the way he sees the entire campaign. That shift becomes even clearer when you look at how Verstappen is talking about the season itself. He is trying to enjoy it wherever he can. At first, that sounds positive. It sounds calm. It sounds like a driver refusing to let frustration control him. But those words carry more weight when the season around him feels uncertain. A driver who believes everything is moving in the right direction usually talks about momentum, progress, the next opportunity. A driver who talks about enjoying the season where he can may be describing something very different. He may be accepting that the good moments are no longer guaranteed. That does not mean Verstappen has decided to leave. The source does not support that conclusion. It does not confirm negotiations with another team. It does not reveal an exit plan. But it does show why every sentence now creates another wave of speculation. Because Verstappen is no longer speaking from a position of complete control. He is speaking from inside a season where recovery cannot be assumed. And that changes the meaning of everything. When a team is dominant, one difficult weekend feels temporary. The driver expects the engineers to find the answer. The engineers expect the next change to work. The entire organization believes the problem can be contained. But when uncertainty enters the system, every difficult weekend starts asking a larger question. Is this just one bad result? Or is this what Red Bull has become? That question can be more damaging than the result itself. A poor race can be explained. The tires did not behave as expected. Setup was wrong. Traffic ruined qualifying. The strategy did not work. But when the same uncertainty returns, explanations begin to lose their power. They start sounding familiar. And familiar explanations eventually create doubt. Verstappen knows exactly what a successful Red Bull feels like. He knows how quickly the team can solve problems when every department is working together. He knows the confidence that comes from arriving at a race expecting to fight at the front. He knows when the car responds. He knows when an upgrade makes sense. And he knows when the same weakness keeps coming back. That experience gives him a standard that cannot be lowered easily. He is not comparing the current team with an average Formula One operation. He is comparing it with the strongest version of Red Bull. That is a much harsher comparison. Past success proves what the team can achieve. But it also makes every current weakness feel more serious. And this is where enjoyment becomes a complicated word. Enjoyment can be a sign of strength. It can help Verstappen stay focused. It can protect him from the pressure surrounding the team. It can allow him to appreciate individual battles, strong laps, and unexpected results. But enjoyment can also become separate from belief. A driver can still love racing. He can still enjoy competing. He can still appreciate a good weekend. And at the same time, he can question whether the project around him is moving in the right direction. The source does not say that Verstappen has reached that point. But it shows why people are asking the question. Because every comment now arrives inside a larger atmosphere of doubt. And Red Bull has become trapped inside that atmosphere. If Verstappen sounds frustrated, people say he is preparing to leave. If he sounds calm, people say he is hiding the truth. If he says stack movement is normal, people say the departures must be serious. If he rejects the narrative, people say the narrative has become impossible to ignore. There is no perfect answer. That is the trap. And the more Red Bull tries to calm the situation with words, the more the outside world listens for what might be hidden underneath them. That is why the claim about an owner wanting Verstappen gone has gained so much power. Not because the supplied source confirms it. It does not. The claim gains power because the wider Red Bull story now contains enough uncertainty for people to believe almost anything. Marko sounds doubtful. Recruitment has become a major subject. Staff departures continue to attract attention. Verstappen is trying to enjoy the season where he can. And he is publicly rejecting the story being built around the team. Each point can be explained on its own. Together, they create pressure. And pressure creates patterns, even when those patterns are not fully supported. One remark becomes a warning. One departure becomes an exodus. One difficult season becomes the beginning of the end. And one unsupported claim becomes a supposed announcement that changes everything. But here is the deeper problem. Rumors do not need to be completely true to create real consequences. They only need to be believable enough. An engineer considering Red Bull may wonder whether the team is stable. A current employee may become more willing to listen to another offer. Sponsor may ask whether the project still has the same long-term value. A rival team may see the perfect moment to apply pressure. And Verstappen may find himself answering more questions about leaving than about winning. That matters. Because Formula One is not only a competition between cars. It is a competition between beliefs. The strongest teams convince everyone that the future belongs to them. Their drivers believe it. Their employees believe it. Potential recruits believe it. Even their rivals begin to feel it. But when doubt enters a team, the process works in reverse. People begin protecting themselves. They hesitate. They question decisions. They wonder whether someone else knows something they do not. And one small uncertainty begins to affect the entire organization. Think of a crowded room where one person suddenly starts moving toward the exit. Most people may not know why. But they notice. Then another person follows. Then someone else asks whether there is a problem. Very quickly, movement creates more movement. That is what Red Bull must avoid. Not simply the departure of one person, the belief that departure is the sensible choice. That is why recruitment matters so much. Red Bull may be bringing in talented people. That can be a sign of strength. It can be proof that the team is preparing for the future. But new people need time. They need to understand the system. They need to build trust. They need to learn how decisions are made under pressure. And their ideas need to reach the car before Verstappen begins questioning whether the wait is worth it. That timeline is everything. Red Bull can talk about a long-term plan. Verstappen experiences the short-term cost. The team can describe a rebuild. The driver feels every weekend lost during that rebuild. The team can celebrate gradual progress. The driver sees rivals moving ahead. And this creates a conflict that does not require anger, betrayal, or an owner demanding his removal. It only requires time. Too much time. Because a Formula One team can think in years. A driver often cannot.